The first thing you need to know is that I is equal to the square root of -1. Okay? I is equal to the square root of -1. That's what the number or the variable I stands for. The square root of -1. So you're used to seeing this form a plus bi because it happens in our quadratic equations. It happens sometimes when we completed the square. If we got a negative under the square root, we would have a number plus a number with an I in it, usually a square root. We can graph complex numbers. But instead of having an x and y axis, we have a real axis and we have an imaginary axis. Okay, the real axis is like your x. X comes first. The real part comes first. The real part is A. The imaginary axis is like your y-axis. Y comes second. The imaginary part comes second. Okay? So if we were asked to graph the complex number -4 minus I, -4 minus I, we would go to -4 on our real axis. So the real axis is like the x-axis, so -4. And then minus I, that's like having a 1 in front of that I, so we would go to -1 on the imaginary axis. That is graphing the complex number -4 minus I. So the real axis is like our x-axis. It comes first. It's the number that comes first. So you move left and right first. And then the imaginary axis is like our y-axis. It comes second. You go up or down after that. Okay? How about 2 minus 5i? 2 minus 5i. The real part is +2. So we're going to go right 2. The imaginary part is -5. So we go down to -5. This is the complex number 2 minus 5i. So pretty simple as long as you remember real axis is like your x. It comes first. X comes first. Real part comes first. Imaginary axis is your y. Is like the y. It comes second. Y comes second. X, Y, real, imaginary. Okay? We can also add and subtract and multiply complex numbers, but guess what? You can use your calculator. Okay? You can use your calculator. You just need to make sure that you are in what we call complex mode. So I want everybody right now to take your calculator and go to mode. Okay, usually we don't mess with anything here, but you need to go all the way down to the next to the last line there. And do you see the A plus BI? Yep. You need to go over, highlight it, press enter so that A plus BI is flashing, and then press second quit. As long as you do not reset your calculator, and I know some of y'all are in the habit of resetting your calculator to clear stuff out, it will stay in that mode. Okay, if you reset it, you gotta go back in and change it back to A plus BI mode. So if they ask us to subtract these complex numbers right here, all we have to type in is exactly what shows up on our paper. Okay, and you gotta make sure you get the I in there. Remember, it's second decimal, if you didn't know where it is, minus, make sure you put it in parentheses, and it gives you the answer. -6 minus 8i. Now, adding, subtracting actually isn't that hard by hand. Okay, you just do the real part. You pair the real parts together. -5 minus 1 is -6, and you pair the imaginary parts together. -6 minus 2 is -8. That's all you got to do. Now, multiplying gets a little bit more complicated. I meant to erase that right there. Okay, multiplying has a little bit more to it, but it's not really that bad, because your calculator will do it for you. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do it by hand, but first of all, I'm going to show you what the answer is. Okay, you just type it in with parentheses and everything, and it will do all the work for you. The answer is negative 18 minus I. Okay, negative 18 minus I is the answer. Let me show you where it comes from. You FOIL, just like you would do any binomial. Okay, that looks like a binomial. 2 terms times 2 terms. We just don't have any x's. We got i's instead. So we FOIL. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 3 times negative 3i is negative 9i. Negative 4i times negative 2 is positive 8i. You just treat the I like a variable, like an x. That's all you're doing. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. I times I would be I squared. Now, if you're doing it by hand, you need to know this other thing about I. I is equal to the square root of negative 1. So I squared is equal to negative 1. So when we're simplifying this expression right here, we replace I squared with negative 1. So we've got 12 times negative 1. So that's where the negative 18 comes from. Negative 6 plus negative 12 is negative 18. Okay? So I wanted to show you where it comes from, how you can do it by hand, but why risk it? Just use your calculator. Play your calculator. The calculator will do it. You've got your calculator on the final exam. You've got your calculator on the test for this class. Use your calculator. Okay? Be smart about it. Speaking of a test for this class,